Hello, nonprofit leaders. I'm Sarah Olivieri, your host, and this podcast is here to assist people like you, executive directors, board members, and other nonprofit leaders, make a bigger impact with insights, tips, and lessons learned from nonprofit leaders and experts. Having been an executive director, a board member, and now a consultant and coach, I truly understand the challenges you face. And that's why I'm here. I'm all about working smarter, not harder, so you can make a bigger impact without the burnout. And so is our sponsor, DonorBox. DonorBox isn't just a suite of helpful fundraising tools, it's a partner that helps you raise more money and supports you in retaining your donors. I love their forward-thinking approach. Visit donorbox.org to learn more. And don't forget to sign up for the Inspired Nonprofit Leadership newsletter, where you'll get bite-sized, actionable tips just for nonprofit leaders like you, delivered weekly to your inbox. Sign up at inspirednonprofitleadership.com/sign up. Okay, let's dive into today's episode. My guest for this episode is Lisa Stueckemann, who has invested over 15 years in the nonprofit sector. Her undergraduate degree in musical theater and Masters of Nonprofit Administration provide a unique and creative lens to her fundraising philosophy, strategy, and leadership style. She has on-the-ground experience in annual giving, major gifts, corporate philanthropy, cause marketing, and event design. And she's led development teams in healthcare, social services, and faith-based spaces. Her consulting practice, Fundraising Rebel, focuses on fundraising for nonprofit organizations. And she recently published a book of the same name, the same title, and she lives in Tampa Bay. Welcome, Lisa. It's such a pleasure to have you. Before we dive into nonprofit fundraising, would you just tell us a little more about yourself personally so we can
Yeah.
know you as a whole being?
Thank you so much, Sarah. And I'm excited to join you. I love having these conversations. And, I live in Tampa Bay. And so obviously, I'm someone who enjoys the water. We're boaters. I recently went back to ballet, which has been a challenging and yet kind of coming home experience. And so I encourage anybody to have those hobbies, have those interests, because inevitably I always find that when I'm spending time in those spaces that are life giving, it actually fuels other areas of my life as well. And so, yeah, that's just a little bit about me.
I love that. So that is so true. I'm also a boater, mostly sailboat racing,
Yeah.
which is definitely one of those hobbies. It takes a lot of time, but is
Yeah.
so enriching. And I learned so much about it for business and leadership, and I gained
Yeah.
so much for myself. So I just second what you just said, for sure.
Good. Good.
So let's talk about fundraising. So many nonprofits, right, like are concerned about fundraising.
Yeah.
They're worried about having enough money, and it can feel overwhelming,
Yeah.
daunting, impossible. So want to start off with this kind of broad question because there are different flavors of fundraising thinking out there. How would you describe the flavor of your approach?
My approach is primarily focused on a donor's interests. Now, I want to say, let's go beyond this donor centricity phrase and maybe the passions and interests type of thing. Because I actually believe that each of us is born with a wrong that we want to see made right. Just like how you're into sailboating, there are so many of your listeners who have never been on a sailboat, right? But they might like to jog. If I go jogging, I this panic like rises up in me that I might die. Okay. But I can take an hour and a half ballet class and for the most part hang in there. We're all wired differently, and so are our donors. And I would really encourage everyone out there to take a fresh look at the people that are in your portfolio. I would love to see the sector talk more about respecting that donor's passions and interests and understanding the precious thing that we hold in our hands. that is a little bit of the lens there that is different for me of I think we push forward. I think the donor centricity thing, like I like the phrase, but I think it kind of had its moment. I think we need to dig a little deeper and almost be like, haven't even figured out the vernacular yet. But it's almost like human centric.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I love that. That aligns so deeply with, and I'm always playing with like language because I think
Yeah,
the language we use really affects how we think, and how we think
correct.
then affects like what we end up doing. I have been swapping the language of like major gifts for the language of high touch relationship fundraising versus scaled relationship fundraising. So the scaled always sounds a little like, but that's like when we're using digital tools to reach out
Hmm.
way more people than we could just do individually. But it comes from that place that you're talking about of like, they're humans.
Yeah.
And I'm also hearing in this, and coaching fundraising isn't my main thing, but I have some clients who are learning about it and asking about it. And the big concern is always like, well, how do I make an ask? How do I make an ask? I'm like, how about you just worry about getting to know them until they start giving you money? And then you can learn
Yeah, right.
ask, right? But don't even worry about how to ask for money until you like each other enough that they just start
Yeah.
giving to you. So how does that play in? You don't have to agree with me by all means, but
Oh,
like how does that play off of this
er,
idea that I
no, definitely. I think we're in alignment there because, when we come up with these tools, AI, blah, 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 we feel like, well, that's going to help us be smarter, faster, whatever. We're never going to get beyond the human, the touch points. AI will never be human. Let's stop acting as if it can. So remind everyone, the exact area of nonprofits where you're serving in. You're there, ideally, because you love that cause. Just keep loving it as a fundraiser and will help fuel your conversation just because you love it. We all like talking about things that we love. I remember early on as a frontline fundraiser, just had these great managers at Feed My Starving Children. And she would say, every week, go back and watch a video that we made. Just take 3, 5 minutes, watch a video. Just be reminded of what you care about. I think in how busy we get, it's so easy to forget that. One of the exercises that I encourage people who attend my workshops and stuff is to just take a pen and a piece of paper and write out by hand the mission of your organization. Just word for word, just remember what it is. And I have been so buried and I have had, just like all of us, incredible pressure put on me to raise this, that, or the other, that I actually forget all of that. I forget the handwriting out the mission, the handwritten notes. I forget what the cause even is. And I think as fundraisers, and you guys, I'm just talking about like a minute here. You know what I'm saying? Go back and just remind yourself because fundraising truly is one of the greatest jobs in the world. And the pressure can make us forget that.
Yeah, yeah. I'd love you to talk more about like if you take this human centric approach, what kinds of priority shift? How does it change your activities? What becomes in? What comes up to the top as a priority and what
Yeah.
maybe kind of gets set to the side or deprioritized?
So I think that the relationship itself will drive it. I actually say that a lot of leadership goes back to dating and parenting. Okay. Like, and I am even mean like high school dating, right? So around Valentine's Day when this is going, so when I was interested in my husband, who I met in high school, as a side note, doing the musical Grief. I was Sandy and he was Danny and whatever. Hey, but anyway, different girlfriend when the show started. And I remember for Valentine's Day, I wanted to give him like a card, but it couldn't be like we're together, but I didn't want it to be like we're friends. So I think I read every single card they had in Hallmark back in the day when we go to the Hallmark store and found what I thought was the perfect one. next day I go to school, kind of go around the corner to his locker to give him this card. And he's standing with his girlfriend who is giving him homemade chocolate chip cookies. And I can't even bake. I don't know how to turn the oven on, nothing. And his response to those cookies made me feel like I will never be with this guy because she nailed it. She had paid attention enough to know that that made more sense to him than a card, and it does still to this day, by the way. Being in relationship with donors, that should drive what we're doing. We're doing it in the opposite right now. We're like, okay, and sometimes we have to out of necessity, but we've got 2, 3, or 4 groups that we're focusing on. We have one staff member that's like tied to each group. They're going to figure out what the thing is, and so it's Valentine's Day, so we mail everyone a Valentine. And what I would just love is if we could focus on fewer, almost maybe donors, but do better. Like, could we even start there? So that would be some of it too. I think some of it is motivated from my point of view from being a donor myself.
Yeah. What does that feel like as a donor? Well, let me ask first. Have you received the type of interaction that you would hope for as a donor?
Not very often.
Yeah, okay. So what does it feel like when you don't? What are your I'm always taking note. I'm not a big donor myself because I always felt like my work was
Sure.
my gift.
And it is.
But I'm always surprised, like the pieces of direct mail I get and like and the emails, I'm like, "Oh,
I have so much to talk about this. But one time we had a donor dinner. Okay. So this should be it, like for the fundraiser, right? I mean, they said yes to dinner. A captive audience for 45, 50, 60 minutes, right? And talked the entire time, didn't ask us any questions about our interests. And then the ask was given almost like a Hail Mary. Didn't do any pre-math, didn't do any work. It was like, well, you gave this much last year, maybe you could do it again, kind of a thing. And then had forgot gift that they wanted to give us. And so asked us to walk with her to her car on the way out so she could give us the gift, and popped open the trunk and it was filled with premiums. So she was like, "Hey, what do you want? Umbrella, blanket, is there any pens, sticky notes?" And it was like the Wizard of Oz pulling back the curtain. Do you know what I mean? And so that has sticked with me. I'm actually grateful for the experience because I talk about it a lot to say it's simpler than that. And it needs to be more genuine than that and more human than that.
yeah." I love that story, especially combined with, what you said before. Like it's almost like less interaction. My
Yeah.
business optimizing brain says, don't scale an activity until you've really nailed the
Correct.
basic process, right?
Correct.
So, like, if I put it into like those terms, it's like, folks, nailing the process is about building good, genuine relationships. We're actually pretty simple and straightforward. Like, when people are like, well, what am I going to say? What do I ask them? Like the obvious ones, like ask them about their kids, their pets, right? People love that stuff, right?
Right. They
Like,
like to talk
you're
about
pretty
themselves.
safe starting there and then listen to what they say and ask follow-up questions, right? That's like the whole formula.
Exactly. Exactly. It's simpler, think, but it's more courageous
Yeah.
what we've been doing.
Why does it feel more courageous to people?
I think we're hiding
Or
behind some of these tools.
like it's covering up our fear of rejection.
Yeah. And man, I would love to talk about that fear of rejection because I think it drives us in other areas of life. But in fundraising, no does rejection. It brings clarity. And there's some mindset renewal we need to do in our heads. Our story about high school again, but like there was a time when I had a crush on this guy in the drama department. And the school had started a brand new dance. They were going to have a winter dance in like about 6 weeks or whatever from this moment. maybe 4. And I remember thinking I had a chance of this guy asking me. Like, I mean, there was a serious, like, we were on the road, you know? So I went to the mall one night. That's back when we bought dresses at the mall. And I found the ultimate dress for the 80s. It was electric blue polyester and the most amazing shoulder pads. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to have to pick this up because if he hadn't asked me, but if he did ask me and the dress was gone, total disaster. So I buy this dress. They put it in the bag with the tissue paper and whatever. Turns out the guy worked at the mall. So I thought, I'll just walk over there and see how he's doing. And so I am carrying the dress in the bag. I walk into the store where he's working. We like, say hi or whatever. Within a minute or so, I'm like, so hey, like this winter dance, like, what do you guys think about it or whatever? And he was like, oh, no one's going to that. It's going to be so lame. Right. I am holding the dress in the bag. Please, everyone listening, that's rejection. A donor saying, hey, you making an ask, and they're like, I don't know. That's not rejection. It's an opportunity for clarity. And I would love us to want it because then the fear of rejection goes away and all of this noise in our head would quiet and we wouldn't hide behind things anymore and we wouldn't be scared of it anymore.
Yeah, we hear rejection in things that aren't rejection. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's not the right time. I'm
Yeah.
not sure. I'm not sure if I can give that much,
Yeah.
right? Let me think about it.
Yeah.
None of those are true rejection, right? Those are like, oh, I'm entertaining the idea.
Correct. It's just they're clarifiers. And I actually do talk about that in the book. Like, what does no mean? And I would even tell you if I was on the other side and I had a conversation with a fundraiser and my answer was no, I would want that fundraiser to even say to me, okay, I took this class, like straight up. I took this class and they told me that no doesn't mean rejection. It could mean no, not now. No, not the right amount. No, not the right thing. Is that what you're trying to tell me? And have the donor be like, yes, it's no, not now.
Which is like, yes, later.
Correct.
I'm doing algebra with my son right now, pre-algebra, and it's like, it makes me think like they're talking about like, use the distributive property and like write this equation in it means the same thing but in a different way, right? So
That's right.
no, not now equals yes, later.
Yes, later.
Yeah, yeah. Interestingly, that reminds me of two stories from two books written by the same co-author. One is a recent one by Noah Kagan, and it's about building a business, but he has this exercise that he wants everybody to think about building a business to do. It's about facing rejection. And he says, just go to a cafe, any cafe, and when you check out, ask for a discount. And his purpose is so that you get rejected in a very like safe to fail
Sure.
situation, right? Just
Sure.
feel the rejection, experience it, and discover for yourself that even a true rejection, no, not ever, really isn't that bad. But
Yeah.
interestingly, same co-author, but different primary author, I think from Never Split the Difference, they tell the story of you should go like to a cafe and just like, if you're Sarah, like I'm, you'd be like, oh, and what's the Sarah discount? And the moral of that story is a surprising number of times, someone will be like, oh, well, we don't have a Sarah discount, but we have a whatever discount. And you end up getting a
Oh
discount
my gosh.
anyway.
Fun.
So either way you win, you
Yeah.
either, but I thought that was like such a brilliant
Mm-hmm.
exercise to just
Mm-hmm.
find, like we said, like we started off talking about it's so good to have a hobby or something that like stimulates you. And for
Yeah.
me, like sailing is also an exercise in facing fear and facing
Yeah.
challenge. But I control it, like my life doesn't fall apart, like if I don't do well or whatever. But like create that opportunity for you to just experience the failure, and before long, like it doesn't really become a big deal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mhm.
because it doesn't really hurt you if somebody says no. It actually saves you a bunch of time. Like if they really said no, not ever, go away, you're like, now I got room to add somebody in.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I really encourage nonprofits to put on, like, event invitations, how much you want to raise. Because if someone is not in a place of being able to give, they will most likely say that they can't attend. That you want that because I want people at the event who can give. And this kind of leans into trust and honesty, which our sector is we're having a tough time with trust. If you can be the professional, the fundraiser who's all about honesty, you'll win them because there's a lack of trust in the public trust right now.
Yeah. It's so
Mhm.
true. It's so unfortunate. But as I venture more into the for profit world, talking with folks, there are so many misconceptions. Oh, aren't people stealing? I'm like,
Mhm.
really? I'm like, oh, isn't it like so unregulated? I'm like, actually, it's one of the most highly regulated industries, and
Yeah,
all their tax returns are public record, like
right.
along with their CEO's salary. Like,
Yeah.
people are like, oh, well, but they just
Mhm.
don't know that. And the
Mhm.
perception is out there. And I love what you said about trust. It makes me think of the people who are, I think it feels hard to be, quote, honest when you've got that, like when you're struggling. I've always felt like people love being the hero. They love being the savior to help you when you're struggling. So, like, I don't really see the benefit. I love to hear your thoughts on like, whether it's bad news or good news, it's good news to tell a donor. Like, how do you process that thinking?
Yeah, I think that clarity is really important, and again, this leads back into let's just be human. I cannot believe how many organizations that I'm, like, flipping through their social media, I'm going to their websites, are not telling us that they didn't make their goal. I can't believe it. Why are you not telling us?
Because
Why
wouldn't we want to help you? Wouldn't we feel terrible and be like, I would do that even if I wasn't committed. Oh, you missed your goal. Like, let me step in and help.
Yeah, we have to tell them. We have to tell them. One of the things I'm encouraging organizations to do, and I'm calling this, like, the best math. You were just talking about math. I want organizations to figure out what it costs for them to run for an hour. I don't I wanna get away from this. It costs $942 to send a kid to school. I don't want that anymore because that math doesn't work, and that's contributing to the trust issue.
It does, because it puts the focus on it just takes running a program to make an
Correct.
impact.
But we
Yeah.
don't need air conditioning or
Or,
insurance or whatever.
right. Or
If
leadership or research,
No,
right? Like none of
no,
that stuff.
or the internet. Like, so if we could just take the annual budgets
Yeah.
and guerrilla math divided by 2,080, that's a 40-hour work week, 52 weeks a year. Now, granted, if you're a university and you have kids that spend the night, go ahead and blow that out. That's fine. You work more. But if we could come to a standard to know that this local nonprofit, it's this much an hour. This national nonprofit, it's this much an hour. This international, it's this much an hour. And then that way donors would have some equity to be able to say, okay, this some equality. This is where do I want to put my money? When I think about my portfolio of giving, just like my portfolio of savings, where do I want my dollars to go and what am I getting?
Yeah. So and that goes to my thought as I heard that. I'm like, I love that, but I also always want that number to be in comparison. Like it's this many out, per hour per impact, right? Like
Sure.
that, unit of impact. So like, it costs us this much to run an hour and we can get this much done in it. Maybe
Yeah.
not an hour, but in a
Oh, for
year,
sure.
like we do X, Y, and Z so that people can see, well, this one costs a lot more per hour, but they're getting like 10 times more. done than the one that costs less per hour, and start
Correct.
to see that the bargain isn't always the bargain.
Yeah, so then it gives us the opportunity to cast vision for what happens in an hour, versus trying to sell them on, like, I don't know, like buying a kid's education. I don't
It makes it too transactional, right?
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
Speaking of transactional, so I've told this story, I think, briefly on another episode, but I think you're going to like it. I was at an event for entrepreneurs, and I discovered that there were a lot of entrepreneurs at this event who were very interested in making an impact and supporting charities and doing partnerships with them, but really didn't know much about it. And so people were asking me, so I ran a little experiment to test the waters around this idea of it's hard to get donors to support overhead, which isn't a word I usually use, right?
Sure,
But I'll use it right now because
sure.
that's like the death. Nobody wants to support overhead. Or right, well, what's the thing they want to support even less than them? The fundraising department.
Oh my
Right?
god.
The worst of all overhead. So I made my little pitch and quickly realized if I just said to an entrepreneur, hey, how would you like it if I told you how you could make your giving have at least a 4 times ROI? And they're like, oh, yeah, I'd love to hear that. I'm like, well, if you give, $10,000 to programming, you're going to get $10,000 of impact. If you give $10,000 to the fundraising department, you're probably going to get $40,000 out. And then they can just keep reinvesting 10 and infinitely make your gift go on forever without you even having to give more. And they're like, yes, tell me how to do that,
Uh-huh.
And then I let them know, really, you shouldn't ever restrict your giving. But case in point, I mean, talk about, a rebel idea.
Mhm.
I just totally flipped the script and sold them on the idea of giving to the fundraising department only in seconds. And they were totally bought in.
Sarah, I made a note because I heard you tell that story. I had talk about a rebel idea of concept of bringing it to the conversation. Because, yes, you're totally right that supporting, like, we want to put the percentage that goes to fundraising and we want that to be super small. This is ridiculous. This is ridiculousness. And how you call it out is really important and should be talked about. I would love that to be talked about in board meetings.
Absolutely. And the conversation goes back to what you said earlier. So partly why this worked so well for that audience is entrepreneurs are almost always thinking from an ROI, return on investment perspective. They don't really care about the amount that goes in as long as they have access to it.
Sure.
They care about how many times come back and how long it's going to take, right? So that conversation might not work on anybody, right? But I knew this about these people. Like, you
Yeah.
talk to them, you listen to them, I learned about their business, right? That's the piece of the story I haven't told. I learned that they care about giving, that maybe they already have a nonprofit they're interested in, or one of them shared that he had been wildly successful. And at this stage in his career, he was only taking clients whose work made an impact. Like he could just cherry pick any clients he wanted. So then I know, like, oh, now I know not only are they an entrepreneur, not only are they really good at bringing in money, they care, right? And you feed them something that is in their language and what they care about. And that's why they love eating it because you just gave them their favorite dish after you
Sure.
took the time to get to know what they love.
Sure. But this is what's going to help move the nonprofit sector is these rebel concepts. And what is literally killing the nonprofit sector right now is doing things the way we've always done it, but wanting a different result, which is that definition of insanity. So many fundraisers are leaving their workplace because they're tired of it. They come in with the fresh ideas and they get pushed down all the time. I offer coaching sessions to help pick these wonderful fundraisers with great intentions and great educations and big hearts off the ground because of how they're continually getting, stepped on and saying, yeah, that is cute idea. It is super cute. But let's do that event again. And let's not spend as much and let's raise more. and yet they were told something else when they took the job. I just watched the 2026 predictions webinar from the Winkler Group, and they brought up something. I Yeah, I always recommend it. But what they said, which maybe I was just being naive, not only are fundraisers leaving their post, they're not coming back to fundraising jobs. They're leaving completely. So if you have less fundraisers and your resources, what you're raising is going down, there will be a day there will be no more nonprofit sector.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a math exercise and it's scary. And so asking the rebel questions, coming at things from a different angle is paramount right now. And the organizations that do that, those will be the ones who stay. And the leaders who are willing to hear that, those will be the ones who the donors will be encouraged to go to and excited to be part of those works. Mhm.
Yeah. That's so, so powerful. As we get close to time, I'd love kind of maybe in rapid fire. What would you say are the top three, or what the exact number doesn't matter, top three rebel questions fundraisers should be asking?
Yeah. Fundraisers should be asking their donors. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Asking their donors, asking themselves,
Oh, wow.
asking their leadership. What do you feel like are the top rebel ideas or questions
I
that
think,
should people can leave with
yeah,
today?
I think one of the greatest questions you can ask a donor is talk to me about what's wrong in the world and then give me some of your ideas of how to fix it.
Love it.
And have fundraisers be able to craft their message if it connects, obviously, craft their message to be able to help that donor see that if you lock arms with us, I'm going to take you on a crazy wild ride and we're going to fix some of this wrong stuff in the world because there's a lot of wrong stuff right now. So that's one of the questions, the leading questions I would ask donors right now. I think that leaders need to ask their boards, and we need to give. I mean, and that is a rebel question right now, is why are you not giving more tasks? Why are you taking a leadership role, but you're not leading with your wallet? Why are you not doing that?
Yeah. Interesting.
And then I also think that fundraisers need to really be willing to ask their leadership, why can't I do something new?
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that we get rid of everything. I'm just saying, can we try to transition to a new thing? Will you give me some resources so I can do something new? Those would be my three.
That's the last one is it's really hard to hear because, when I think of everything in running a nonprofit, so often like measuring impact is hard because we're talking about lifelong ramifications. We're talking about measuring happiness and well-being. Those things are hard, but measuring money is easy. And I see zero reason why all fundraising departments shouldn't be free to run any
Yeah.
experiments and be focused on, mostly two numbers, like what's our cost to raise a dollar, or like our fundraising profit margin is how I like to actually calculate it. And, how scalable are our activities? How much total can we bring in with
Uh-huh.
that, with the activities we're doing? So like if you're always, and that's it. Like it can be a data-driven decision, like, shouldn't
Sure.
even need to ask leadership for anything. You just
Sure.
follow the data, try experiments, and see what what works better.
Yeah. And what I would say to a lot of your executive directors who are listening to this today,
Yeah.
I would bet, I'm just throwing it out there, but the high majority of fundraisers, and I mean high, like I'm talking 80% or plus, are creatives. That if you ask them their story, that there is someone like me who started violin when they were 4, or their mom made them take piano lessons, or they were in the costume shop of the theater department. And that means that there is a part of their brain that is always thinking of things a little bit differently. As leaders, when we don't allow that to have a presence in the organization, you are silently crushing them every day. Let them be who they were wired to be and give them the opportunity to try things. And heaven forbid in your organization, you say, you can fail here. Hey, freedom to fail, but don't give them any chances. Let's stop that. And that's where this trust and this honesty is going to come from. If we are not being trusting and honest inside of the organization, how in the world can we be outside? If you're an organization that's about mental health and you're not caring about the mental health of your employees, shame on you. We have to start being who we say we are inside so then we can make the world a better place outside. But it doesn't happen in reverse.
Absolutely. I just want to second that so strongly. As someone who's mostly focused on helping organizations be better inside, it is like every single time organizations are like, we weren't even thinking about fundraising. We were just focused internally and money started coming in. People started sending us checks. I have clients who got grants they didn't apply for because when you do that inside work,
Right.
it just starts to show and people notice and people start giving because they want to be like, I want what she's having, right? Like,
Right, exactly. And that's the rebel move for the executive director who has all this pressure on them from the board, right? The numbers didn't come in. What should we share? What shouldn't we? And then we go fundraiser, fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it. Instead, I want executive directors to say, okay, something's wrong. I think it's inside. I think it was on my watch. I'm sorry. Let's fix it. It's safe here now. And really prove that so it can be fixed inside. So then to your point, the work can happen outside.
I love that. For folks thinking, I need more, obviously they should order your book on Amazon. We'll have a link in the show notes. But what folks do you love to work with? Who are the right fit for you? And what's the best way for them to connect with you and follow you?
Yeah, hey, thanks for that. So I do have a website. It's fundraisingrebel.org. You can sign up for a little newsletter situation there that, to be honest with you, I reach out a lot that way. If you need help, I would love for you to reach to me through that website. If you are a fundraiser who's really struggling, I would love to coach and provide that like friend in your back pocket that you need. And I'd also love to help you create a 12-month fundraising plan that you can feel more on top of this. Obviously, I would love for you to grab the book. It's an easy read and it's on Amazon. And I think just like how I was telling silly stories, there's a lot of silly stories in there too, but there's a lot of truth and a lot of help. And I really want to help the sector. Sarah, thank you for the opportunity to be on this, to share the Rebel way and to encourage our organizations to be different and to be honest and trusting and do some great work so we can have donors join us in our mission and literally change the world.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much. And thank you for making your book an easy read. For those who are watching on video, it is a skinny thing. You will get through it quickly. For those of you on audio only, this is a truly accessible book. There are plenty of books out there that you're like, I don't have the time for that, right? And so I'm honoring that because to me, the way this book, it's a sign of respect for our audience that we serve here. So I appreciate that because oftentimes it can be harder to write the short, accessible book than the long book. So thank you.
Thank
And
you.
thank you. Yeah, my pleasure. And thank you out there for listening and everything you do to make our communities better. You can help grow this community by leaving a review, rating this podcast wherever you're listening to it, and sharing it with a friend who could benefit as well. Until next time, I wish you all the best.
You've been listening to Inspired Nonprofit Leadership. Thanks so much for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode or the bonus episodes. And while you're at it, please leave a rating and review and be sure to share with your friends and colleagues. Tune in every week for more useful insights and wisdom on nonprofit leadership. Thanks so much for all you do for the communities you serve. Until next time, all the best.